first episode is going to be kind of just like an overview. I mean, it's not going to be very informational. I just want to go into a little bit about myself. And I feel like I talk in circles a lot. I'm going to try not to use as many sentence fillers, no ums and uhs. Like I said, I'm a Catholic. I was born and raised Catholic. My 3 brothers and I all were altar servers growing up. I had always had somewhat of an affinity for the church. I always loved serving. I started serving Mass when I was in 2nd grade. And I always just felt like it was just such a real experience. It just was such a deep, personal thing. And I don't know, I was young and I didn't really have, I guess I didn't have like the words to describe what I was feeling. So, continued to go to Mass with my family. When I was a senior in high school, I was still serving as an altar server, still pretty involved in our parish. I was a Knight of Columbus, still am. And I started to kind of feel a little bit of like burnout, I would say, maybe, just from a bunch of repetitions. I've been going to Mass every single weekend for my entire life. And I don't know, I kind of feel like the Lord went quiet on me. Looking back at it now, He was definitely not quiet. I had just started to kind of shut my brain off. I had a lot of exciting things coming up. I was going to go to school, go to college, and I was kind of just focused on what I wanted to do. So I wound up going to college in 2015. And the first year, I kind of just, I don't know what you want to say. I just lived as a complete degenerate. I fell a little bit away from the church. I didn't actually go to Mass at all my freshman year in college. And I just, I was away from the house for the first time. I was learning how to live on my own. I liked doing things that weren't necessarily great for my soul and body. And I got a little taste of freedom. And I had a little bit of, like, control. And I just, maybe one would say that I went a little crazy. But I just totally fell away. And just felt this deep, just pit inside me that I just tried to fill with whatever. I mean, drinking, the ladies, whatever. And I was just feeling so, I would say, maybe empty and alone. Like it was kind of Sean against the world and, whatever. So my sophomore year, I wound up getting pretty involved with this Christian group on my college's campus. And that started to kind of get me back in the fold of the Catholic Church. I started to research other religions. I wanted to understand why I believed what I believed. Like, I was going to just break it down, and I was going to pick and choose. Obviously I was raised Catholic, so I had some inclinations of what Catholics believed and what tradition looks like there. But I wanted to look at other faith practices, especially in the Christian sphere. I knew that Jesus Christ was a real person, so I didn't need to waste any of my time on other religions that don't, other outside of Christianity. So I was already assured of that fact. I knew that in my bones. I knew that Jesus Christ was a historical figure, and I realized that the resurrection, the proof of the resurrection, was a legitimate event in our history. So I didn't need to go and bounce around to the Hindus or whatever, the Muslims or whatever. Didn't need to do all that. So I started to dive deeper into each sect of Christianity, and I saved Catholicism for the last because it's actually what I thought I knew the best, and I didn't want to give that, sect of Christianity an advantage over, evangelical or Baptist, for example. So I started to look at what they believed, read some books, went to some services, and long story short, I just kind of came back into the Catholic Church based off factual information, based off of history, and based off of also seeing Jesus Christ truly present in the Eucharist, in the holy sacrifice of the Mass. So, as this podcast goes on, maybe in later episodes we can kind of dive deeper, maybe into some of those things. So, I think I already talked about my long commute to work. I liked the podcast idea. I loved listening to them. Loved Joe Rogan, the Sean Ryan Show, Pints with Aquinas. But I had always wanted to find a podcast that was about the lives of the saints. And I couldn't find one. I found like a weird one with some girl and some weird dude, and it was not it. So I thought, okay, maybe I could just start one. And I'd always loved saints. I never collected anything as a kid except for prayer cards. I had an affinity for these prayer cards. I would collect them at every chance I got. And if you're not Catholic, you have zero idea what the hell I'm talking about, probably. A prayer card has a painting of a saint on it. And it's usually depicting the saint in some, form that they were famous for while they were alive. And it has that picture on them and then a prayer for their intercession on the back. So I collected these things. I had probably 100, 150, 200 of them in a little SpongeBob Game Boy advanced case. And those are really the only things that I collected as a kid. And I'd always been called on, even as a boy, I was always called on by the way that these men and women lived. And I think now as a man, as a husband and father, I can really see how diving deeper into the lives of these people as a man can be pretty valuable. So that's when I thought of, Sancti Vitae. It means lives of the saints in Latin. My pronunciation's probably just terrible. Maybe as time goes on, I'll work on that as well, so I make sure I'm doing it justice. So, yeah, so that's kind of my background for wanting to start this. I don't have any intentions of making this a super, political thing. My idea is to just do some research on a saint. The first saint I'm going to do is Saint Anselm. He's my confirmation saint. But that's going to be the next episode. This is just a little prequel. So my thing is, I think I got the research done for Anselm. I think I'm going to go through his life chronologically. And I don't know the best format, so it's just going to be trial and error. My first shot's going to be, I have it all typed up, all the information. And I'm going to just read about his life, and then I'm just going to pick something that calls out to me. And that's how we're going to do the first one. Maybe it'll be too scripted, maybe it'll be too boring, I don't know. But I'm looking forward to that episode. The one thing I will say is I feel I feel like, me personally, I feel like my voice is somewhat annoying. And also the way that I speak is it's very to the point. I try not to use a lot of sentence fillers, and it can come off as maybe brash a little bit. That's just kind of the way I am. So I know that it's not going to be a lot of people that enjoys listening to this. But it's kind of mostly for me as well. I'm trying to grow in personal holiness. I think learning about these lives of these people that are people that have confirmed to live, who have been alive, that have gotten so close to the Lord while they walked on earth and done miracles and done all these things in the name of Jesus Christ. I think it's quite incredible and a great inspiration as a husband and father to look up to these individuals. If I can just scratch the surface of where they were at, that's really all I want to do. And I only want to become as holy as Jesus Christ wants me to become. And I'm not some holy dude now. We've all fallen short of the glory of God, and I am no exception to that. I sin quite often, and I am in need of the Lord's mercy like everybody else. And I'm not some holy guy, and I just love the Lord. Every decision that I make, I consult with Him. I talk to Him about it. And nothing I do is a surprise to Him. I communicate with Him daily, 1,000,000 times a day. He is the absolute priority in my life, followed by my family. And I feel like I have this gift of faith. I've had it since I was a boy. I want to be able to share little pieces of that. I don't know how much I'm going to talk about myself, really. I just kind of want it to be informational. And on that note, I don't really want this to be a super political thing. I don't think. Maybe things will come up. Part of it too is I'm definitely not. It's no secret where I kind of stand on issues. Obviously, for those of you that know me, I'm a pretty conservative guy, and I really look at the world through the lens of a Christian. So, I don't know any political things that would ever come up without me forcing it, but I don't know what saints I'm going to cover. So, I would pray to be bold enough to be able to, if something pops in my head, to share it. And, that's pretty much it, I think, for this first one. So, know of my prayers for you, and please pray for me.